Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Final Fantasy IV. Last time we learned more about Cecil's heritage and also saw a bunch of characters come back, but we beat most of them anyway.
Hey, didn't we end on the moon last time? What are we doing back on Earth exactly?
Yes, Joe, we did, but there is more we're going to do off the moon that didn't really become available until after the Giant of Babel was defeated. Using the hovercraft, we're able to access this cave to obtain 2 items, one of which we'll get right now and the other will be here later on today. The first item is actually the adamantite, which we can't do anything with alone. Once we obtain it, we'll get the Excalibur for Cecil, which at least in this version should be the strongest sword he gets. I believe the later versions on the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS have some better ones, but this will work fine for us.
Hey, you may have mentioned this place in the underground before. Is this where we get to use the adamantite?
Yes, that is the case. Once we give it to him, he will become inspired to make weapons again. Or at least this specific one, I don't think he makes anything for us aside from the Excalibur. Either way, it's definitely going to be helpful for dealing even more damage than before.
I'm glad someone here is helping us. I don't think we met really anybody besides the king in the underground who benefited us. I suppose Sid did, but he wasn't born down here. Now that I think about it, this wizard guy doesn't look like the dwarves, so I'm not sure he was born here either.
I'm not sure how he got there either, but that's not really too important. The real important part is the next task, which is getting a new summon. In the Baron Castle basement, there's the spirit of the real king, which changed into Odin for a fight. This is him testing your strength, and there's a rather simple strategy to fighting him.
Barack, are you going to get in legal trouble by killing a king? I think that's regicide or something like that.
No, Joe, he's already dead, so I don't think it counts. I'm not really sure, but it's not like we're going to announce it to everybody after it happens anyway. The fight itself is very simple. He will only use one attack, which is the Zantetsuken. It takes a while to charge up, but at this point it will kill pretty much everyone here. If you're doing this before doing much of the moon activities, you'll probably struggle here, but just use a lot of standard attacks or summons. Once the attack from Odin is almost ready, you can use Kane's jump ability to dodge the attack. Keep attacking from there with who you have left and you should be able to win easily enough. In this case, I actually did enough damage, so I didn't even have to use Kane avoiding the Zantetsuken to defeat him. Once you defeat him like Leviathan and Asura, you can summon him in battle. I don't think I will much if at all, but still it's nice to go after him to show how to get it. Then again, this game has been out for a few decades, so I doubt I'm actually showing people things they haven't seen already.
I'm not too experienced with the mythology of Odin, but I don't remember him using any attacks like a Zantetsuken. I'm also not aware of him being on a horse like that. Did Cagnazzo also kill a horse that reincarnated into that fight, or did he come back as 2 separate beings somehow?
This game probably made up a few details to make the fights more memorable and interesting, even if he never actually got a chance to attack in that example.
I don't really know either, but yes, the general character and attack does come back in many other games. Next up is the Naming Way Cave. There's not much important here for us, though. One of them sells various items. One very important item is the Siren. I'll be getting some more probably off screen later, but you'll want a lot of them for another item that we'll want to get. There isn't a lot to this place, so I'll move on to talking about the next part of our quest, which is the Cave of Bahamut.
My memory isn't the best sometimes, but I think we saw this Bahamut guy in the first game and gave him a rat tail. What do we do now that we don't have one anymore?
Are we able to give him a different animal's tail, or will that not work?
Unfortunately, no, Donald, no other tails are going to work for us. We're just going to have to fight him. Before that, we're moving through the cave, which requires us to fight some required enemies, though I'll still show a few standard encounters here, as there are some more moon-exclusive enemies we haven't seen yet.
That's good and all, Barack, but will I be able to tell you one of my stories today? I've got a good one while we're in this cave.
You can tell your story soon, but there is one enemy encounter coming up that I do want to acknowledge before you do that. Once I'm done, then you can say whatever nonsensical event that never happened to you.
Don't worry about your story, Joe, at this point. They all kind of feel the same, so we won't be happy to hear it, but you've told so many at this point that I'm not sure what we can really do about it.
Perhaps we can delay his story so long that by the time he starts, it's the end of the video and we won't have to hear it after all.
That may be a good idea, but I'll let him say it in a moment. For now, there's this thing blocking our progress, which is weird, as earlier versions had this as a fixed encounter rather than an overworld sprite. Anyway, this is the Behemoth. It becomes more common in later areas of the Final Fantasy games, starting with Final Fantasy II. This is generally considered to be a very powerful enemy. In some games, it will use Meteor as a counter to magic attacks, though usually will counter here with strong physical attacks, so it's worth keeping someone who can heal a lot ready. There's several to fight in this place, but we won't show all of them, as it's essentially the same fight multiple times. There's not much else to this fight, so we'll skip ahead and let Joe say whatever it is he was going to earlier.
Oh, great. Get ready, everyone. I'm sure this will be a good one.
So there I was being my usual Joe Biden self when I saw an ice cream cone on the ground upright. I thought that was weird, but it was ice cream, and so I ate it. The ice cream was really good since it was that chocolate flavor I've mentioned before, and it gave me a vision. It said I had to stop being the president so I could go full-time into trying and inventing new ice cream flavors. That's when I announced on Twitter that I would not be running for a second term, and now I'll be spending my time playing video games on YouTube and also eating ice cream. The end.
Wow, that actually wasn't all that bad of a story. It was still a pretty weird one, but nothing overly illegal or bad happened in it, so that was kind of nice.
And it led to Joe's best decision as a president so far by not continuing it, so that was actually a really good story, Joe. I'm proud of you. It only took about a year to get one that didn't disgust me to my core, but I'll take it.
You are correct, Donald, but more importantly, it's time to fight Bahamut. This is actually the same general strategy as Odin, except he is going to use a different attack called Mega Flare. The same idea applies where you do a lot of damage before he can use Mega Flare, but I don't think I'm going to beat him before he uses it. I think there's another strategy, but I can't really think of it right now.
Hey Ben, do you have any roasts ready for this guy?
Not really. In fact, if anything, Bahamut might be roasting Barak if he's about to hit him with that Mega Flare.
That could definitely happen. More importantly, Rosa recently leveled up and got the Holy Spell, which is a really good way for her to do damage. It costs a lot of MP, but it's very powerful to compensate. Glad to have her as a healer and also skilled at damaging at the same time.
I mean, it's kind of weird to have a spell called Holy be a damaging spell. I don't think that's usually what that word means in other contexts, but if it works, then that's fine.
I think he's about to get that Mega Flare out now.
That worked perfectly except the part that didn't, which was most of it.
Congratulations, Barak. Most of the party is dead or nearly dead while Bahamut is getting ready for another attack. What exactly is your strategy now?
I'm doing the same strategy again. Nobody's stopping me from victory here.
I don't know, Barak, that didn't work all that well for you the first time, so I'm not sure how it's going to work here.
Listen to Joe this time, Barak. This is not going well, and there has to be a better strategy than this.
No, don't worry, everyone. It's time you all start believing in my skills on this.
Barak, I know I haven't really played this game before, but I'm pretty sure your character's having 0 health is bad, right?
Yes, it is, but due to my expert planning, I was able to defeat him anyway, and Kane got a lot of experience for this. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I could have used Reflect and made this significantly easier, though this way also worked out by the end of it. Now, you all know to trust me even when it looks bad.
You're right, Barak, even though I was pretty worried for most of it, you did get through it in your own way. So although I wouldn't want you to be in that position again, you did prove yourself as very good at succeeding anyway.
All right, what's up next for us in the journey to defeat Zemus?
I can give you some more specifics in a moment, but for now, just watch as we make our way deeper in the Lunar Subterrain, which is the final section of the game. All right, so there's a lot to unpack here. This is the Lunar Subterrain, which is the last and longest section in the game. This part will get us through all but one of the optional bosses up to the last save point and will grant some unique items. If you just want to reach the end without the boss fights, it doesn't take that long, but it's still good to get them as they give good experience and the weapons themselves are good. One of them is good for Cecil and probably even better than the Excalibur. I know I said that was the best one for him earlier, but it didn't occur to me until now that the one coming up is likely better. There's also some really powerful enemies that do require more than just the standard attacks. There are various dragons or robots and even some more behemoths. A lot of these can be taken down quickly with the Bahamut summon and Rosa using Holy, while staying with standard attacks for Cecil, Kane, and Edge when he's not knocked out.
That is a lot to take in, but since you beat Bahamut, I'm sure these guys wouldn't give you too much trouble. I do find it interesting how just the last part we were surprised the moon was even an area in the game to travel on, and now we're going into it to defeat the main antagonist.
I think it's just that we've accepted this game got really weird suddenly and can deal with it better. Can we get into the comment question for today now, or is something else happening that you wanted to explain, Barak?
I'm not sure of anything too important for a while coming up. I'll let you know when it happens, though.
Oh, okay, I've got an idea for a comment question. What is everyone's favorite ice cream or popsicle flavor? I like eating them so much I'm basically the expert on it. My personal favorites are the Necronomicon and Sonic the Hedgehog popsicles since they taste so good. Well, the Necronomicon one was right before I got possessed that one time, so I wouldn't recommend it if you're not open to that, but otherwise I'd like to hear what everyone else thinks of.
Are we really doing this? Is that the question we're going with now? There's nothing Final Fantasy related that's a better use of our time?
I think we can let him have this one. After his story wasn't all that bad today, I think he deserves it. Besides, I can't think of much else right now.
All right, fine, we'll go with that question for today. I'd say my favorite popsicle is that star-shaped one with the red, white, and blue because they're the colors of America, obviously. That and the star-shaped ones are easy to bite into after a few minutes, but just enough to where they don't fall apart when you're not eating them. Not that I eat popsicles often since I am in the peak physical form for someone my age, but still.
I don't mean this to sound bad, Donald, but calling you the peak physical form is like calling Joe the peak at memorizing quite literally any detail ever. Anyways, my favorite flavor is the plain white ones that are shaped circularly but come up to a half-sphere shape at the top. Very basic in concept, but if it isn't broke, then I shouldn't try to fix it. I'm pretty sure that's the expression.
I don't really have a favorite popsicle flavor specifically, though I do like the strawberry flavor of ice cream. It really goes well when I'm in Texas since it's pretty warm there in general, so ice cream of some amount is pretty much a necessity.
I have to side with George on not eating popsicles much, if at all. For ice cream, I tend to enjoy the mint with chocolate chips in them. I know mint isn't something a lot of people like, but that with the chocolate is always a great combination. Also more related to the game, but I have been cutting out some parts of the longer battles as they tend to be repetitive. Some of that is understandable in a game like this to a degree, but I think it could be easier to the viewers to take a little bit of the filler out.
I'm pretty sure we've cut out most of the random battles in this game as it is, and even most of the required fights we've edited out a portion of it, so that's not really surprising. I hope it's something that the viewers have enjoyed so they don't have to sit through the less interesting parts. Then again, we're at part 12, so it's a little late to change it now.
Hey Barack, you've probably mentioned this before, but since this playthrough is nearly over, are there any plans on what Final Fantasy game is coming next at all?
I don't really know. This may come as disappointing, but there probably won't be a new one coming anytime soon. I've seen many comments asking for more specifically the 6th and 7th games in the series, but when I think about it realistically, even if we cut out a lot of battles there too, it's going to be a very long series regardless of if I get no game overs and play optimally. It would probably take nearly a year, even if we upload only that each week, and I don't want us to stay only on one game or have it be a multiple year-long project that just won't end, especially if the viewers want something different.
That's a little disappointing to those who are looking forward to more, but perhaps it can come back one day.
I can talk about that a little more later. Right now I have to talk about a very important room. Remembering what I said about the sirens, I got some and they're very useful here. This is the room where using the siren will get you encounters with the pink flans. These will cause characters to become berserk and won't be able to use specific attacks like magic or summons. If you're able to get a few attacks off without turning berserk, then that's great, but otherwise you'll mainly do damage to them individually before they all go down.
That's good and all, but what's so special about Flan Princess is you get the other characters to dance.
It doesn't really matter what they do in the battle so much as what they drop. There's a low chance, but it is possible for them to drop a pink tail, which allows you to give it to that smith guy in the cave towards the beginning of this video, and that will let you get the adamant armor I also mentioned earlier. You could get them for all 5 characters if you really wanted to, but that's not necessary by any means. Unless you were fighting Proto-Babel in the 3D version, I suppose having more than one would help, but not too much. Especially in this version where there's not that much to fight by this point and wouldn't really need the adamant armor anyway.
Hey guys, is it just me, or are these things kind of cute? I think I want to take one home and dance with it for a while. I can let it interact with Alejandro. That would make for a great story.
Joe, I am absolutely certain that nobody has thought that way about these flan things before this moment right now. I can't imagine your lizard or anything else wanting to interact with these things. Now that I think about it, do they even have tails? I'm not sure I really see any.
Apparently they have tails if they can be dropped, though I don't see them either.
Yeah, I don't see them either. They're really rare drops, so for the viewer's sake, we're only showing the one battle, but sometimes it can take a lot of tries before getting one to appear. We'll skip the other attempt after that and deliver the tail. Believe it or not, I actually got it the next time after that battle was recorded, so it took way less time than normal. I'd recommend it as a spot for grinding more experience and money at the same time while you're there. Back to the topic of the Final Fantasy games, if we do play one in the future, it would likely be a shorter one like Final Fantasy 2 or 3, as those take a lot less time than they would here. Maybe we will do 6 or 7 in the future, but not for a long time, if at all.
It's sad to know this will be the end of Final Fantasy games coming up soon, but on the other hand, it's nice to know there are still more things to look forward to. Don't you all have some Metal Gear Solid 2 and Mega Man videos too?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a self-advertising moment, but we've still been traversing the multiverse with having other characters show up in Kingdom Hearts for a while and having Ben play Mega Man 1 and 2. He should be playing later games in the series at some point as well. I'll be playing through Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty in a little while too, so there's a lot to look forward with outside of Final Fantasy.
I'm not sure if this is important, but why is Bahamut back? Why isn't he counting down like before?
No, this is different. Dark Bahamut is another boss fight more difficult than Bahamut. He uses Mega Flare much more quickly and has more attacks, so you do have to try harder. He gives you a weapon by defeating him, but no summon. Then again, I actually got 2 adamant armors, as you may have seen earlier, so this isn't going to be that difficult with those on.
It looks like this is a separate entity from Bahamut as they are attacking each other.
I think it's kind of funny watching them take turns using Mega Flare on each other. About 11 parts ago, this was 2 guys fighting with swords, and now dragons are shooting fire at each other on the moon.
Yeah, these RPG games get pretty extreme in how the enemies change from the beginning to the end. This is a rather strange example as it's the same type of enemy that's being summoned. We'll skip ahead soon enough to the end of this fight since it's a lot of shooting flares and healing, but in the Game Boy Advance and PlayStation Portable versions, there's a lot more lunar summons, so you get to fight a lot more summons than this, so there are several Bahamuts to fight in those versions.
Barack, are you just cutting up all the parts of the battle where someone is using Flare or Mega Flare? I feel like we're missing a lot.
Yeah, it's amusing to me how much it uses the same attack. That, and also Edge is down just like he normally is, so we didn't miss anything important with him. Anyway, the fight is at the end, so once this is all finished, we'll get the Ragnarok. This is yet another very powerful weapon, and in my opinion is worth getting despite all the flare attacks.
I think it's interesting he used Reflect on himself before using Flare. I think it's so he won't miss any of the party characters, and so that you can't hit him with magic yourself. That's probably why, if I understand correctly.
I think you're right on that. I haven't played this, but I think we have a good idea on how to play it just based on Barack's explanation and what he showed us about the game's game so far, except for Edge's abilities. I'm not sure if he's used those ninja powers or even throwing items once yet, but they can't be that hard to understand.
All right, Barakta, you're explaining so we know what these guys' deals are.
So these two Lunasaurs are guarding two ribbons. The ribbons in the Final Fantasy games are basically items that negate pretty much all status effects on your character, so they're definitely good to have. They use Reflect on themselves, so summons are very helpful in this fight since they go past Reflect. I'll probably skip ahead once there's only one left as it becomes a lot more manageable. They can actually do a lot of damage with their attacks, but there really isn't all that much special to this. It's one of the last optional fights in the game, and nothing all that spectacular.
A lot of these major boss fights, whether optional or not, seem pretty easy. I hope the next Final Fantasy game that's played has a bit more strategy that goes into it.
It probably will. And not exactly related, but since we've been focusing so much on how weird the game story is, and all of Barak's explanations, we haven't been fighting with each other all that much. It's nice to get along a little more.
Now that you mention it, yeah, I think you're right. Not that some friendly banter isn't fun, but it seems as though we've been getting along more compared to some other games we've played together. Hopefully Donald won't have any major fails in Metal Gear Solid 2, otherwise we might do some roasting to him after Joe did well on his playthrough of the first game.
It wasn't exactly my intention, but I'm glad that's how it turned out. The last part to this is getting the Holy Lance for Kain by fighting the Plague. Not the real world ones, but the one that looks like an Ahriman. He just casts Doom on you, and that's it. As long as you do enough damage to him before everyone's time reaches 0, then this will not be a challenge. I'll even use Edge to throw a few items. This has nothing special to it, so if anyone wants to say the outro to the video, now is the time.
Yeah, it's been a fun time so far, but I'm sad to see the game almost be over. The next part is the last one, and knowing there won't be more parts of the series for a while isn't great, but at least we know what is ahead for us.
In some ways, I'm going to miss this game making absolutely no sense in any capacity for most of it. Not that much, but a little bit.
I'm still not going to miss Edward at all, or even Edge that much.
I don't think anyone is going to miss Edward here. Anyways, I think we'll talk about all of those comment questions in the past 3 parts and the final part to get those addressed.
Thank you all to those who have stayed with us in the journey so far.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people.